1, 2, 1, 2. Are we ready? I'm gonna give y'all some time. Let the people come in the building. And yeah, I'm sorry about that, family, but sometimes you got to put people on blast to remind them. Man. You know, there's a lot of people from the conscious community who has helped the brother. And for you to go on there shitting on us, it's just pathetic. You know, I've heard a lot of people who helped you, man. People been calling me now, telling me, yo, brother, I've been helping the brother too. I ain't gonna say no names, but everybody that been calling me is from the conscious community who have been helping the brother. And for you to shit on us like that is just crazy. You know I'm not gonna let you get away with that, man. I don't even know. I mean, you're supposed to know who the fuck Sarnetta is for you to even try to think you can get away with that. You know? I'm not letting you get away with it. Not me. Especially when you're talking about me, the conscious community. I am the conscious community. I am the father of the debates. Everybody know I do the debates. I don't need to name no names. Just know that I got missiles in the silo. That's all you need to know. And I spared you. But we're not going to go down that path again. What we're going to do is bring the people some food. Some powerful information. That's what it is about. And that's what I want to do. I want to bring the people some food. Some powerful information. So without any further ado, let's get it.
Consciousness info. Sarnetta TV 7. You keep it hot 24/7. You got that Black Prof 102. Sarnetta TV 2. Yeah.
You are now inside Sarnetta Studios, the House of Consciousness production. Black news presentation.
All I want to ask you is, did you get your greens today? I got mine.
Greetings, this is Kwashiba L, the Idea Doula here, shouting out Sarnetta TV. I have no words for how much I would love to honor and praise this brother. His work is always impeccable. He always gives that devil advocate side. He gives the left, the right. He goes in there. He has a range of amazing people on his show. I love his Ras Mariah Bay video, amazing work. Just continue to do what you're doing, empowering the youth, empowering the women, empowering all of our melanated brothers and sisters so we can find our way. Ashe.
Sarnetta, bless up, papi. How you doing?
Yeah, shout out to Black News 102 and Sarnetta TV. Give thanks.
Sarnetta TV #1.
Hi, we're here in Harlem, New York. Shout out to Sarnetta TV. Way to keep the information flowing. Yo, shout out to Sarnetta TV, Black News 102.
Greetings of peace from a sacred woman who graduated today. Shout out to Sarnetta TV, straight back from Toronto, Canada. We here.
Black News 102, baby. You know where it's at. Shout out to Sarnetta TV.
Thank you, brother. We love you, Sarnetta. Shay.
This is Jazz Shoots, and I want to shout out Cyanetta TV, one of the best media platforms, black owned, black run, forward bias, best in the world.
Bendiciones a la televisión de Sanera. Ya tú sabes dónde está la noticia negra poderosa de 102 de Nueva York.
Well, let me say this, right? I posted I saw a video, right? And I posted it of Brother Umar Johnson on the Roland Martin show, right? And it kind of looked like they ambushed him with some of our white. No, listen.
That's the term he used.
Listen, that's what Umar said.
Yeah.
That's what Umar said. But my thing is this, right? My thing is this. You know I like Umar, Sanetta. You know from when you introduced me to Umar. Mm-hmm. You know he the only one that ever went to the National Black Theater to see speak.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? You know I ain't went to see nobody else but Umar Johnson speak. You know what I'm saying? And you know he made me mad.
I know.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know why he made me mad, and you know I told him about it. You know what I'm saying? And you know I stay on him because he a good brother, and he got a vision, and his vision is large. But sometimes, because of the circumstances of our reality, we deal with small shit. What I'm saying is that he's on a platform that was larger than the coon antagonists. You know what I'm saying? You telling you a psychologist. You mean to tell me you gonna let some coons play you psychologically on camera? Got you looking like the angry black dude from the hood. You understand?
That's what they did?
Listen, do I think that's what they did? See, Brother Jabari, you went to Princeton?
Cornell.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now, in Cornell, now I've never been to Cornell, right? But in Cornell, I know that you encountered some black people who, let me say, whose diction, right, was superlative. And they take pride in that, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. Unless you think people who don't have perfect diction are somehow incapable of perfect diction. You understand? See, let me say that. Let me say this so that we all are on the same page, right? Everybody knows my position on what's that interracial stuff. You understand? Everybody knows my position. Umar Johnson is like parakeeting me. You understand?
Right.
He wasn't talking like that. That's me talking. What I'm saying is that when you are you reaching for something, you got a goal. You striving. You don't win. This is not a slight to my brother, but you don't went from Sanetta TV to Rowan Martin. Okay? Sanetta reaching thousands. Rowan Martin reaching millions.
It's a larger
So now, what my point is that we have always had different elements in our communities that thought they knew what the hell was right. And when you tried to do something different, they came after your ass. They came after Marcus Garvey. That was elements of, like W.E.B. Du Bois type
That's
people.
painful because I celebrate them both, but I am not unaware of the role that W.E.B. Du Bois played. It clearly he was one of the actors in the downfall of Marcus Garvey in the United States. Clearly,
So,
I think the historical record tells us that.
but when you're aware of history and reality, and you see how it plays and how it plays out, and you know that there's agendas at play. You know that there's challenges to authority and vested interests at play. You know that, oh shit, this guy's on this platform. So you know that he's going to reach funders. He's going to reach ears of people who may be funding you. But you ain't got no interest in this. And it don't seem like Umar wants to play ball with them.
Who's the them in this instance?
Them in this instance would be the how do I want to characterize this? Remember, not every black person was enslaved in America. The black people who were not enslaved while black people were enslaved, they were getting a little foothold. You understand? So there's some tier to our society. And the tier has interests that don't necessarily coincide with the people who don't have anything. The people who don't have anything want something. But the people who have something think that the something those people want is theirs. They always see the have-nots as threats.
But you know, I think that we would be painting a picture that is somewhat crude. And I don't mean crude as in bad. I mean crude as in not as comprehensive or detailed when we try to say that some of those people that were speaking to him on that platform were not necessarily the offspring of those people who had been enslaved. Because I think that we continually see some people, look at a Condoleezza Rice, for example, who actually lived amongst impoverished people who, at a certain level, were a product of the oppression of African people who then did things that were against their interests. And I think that part of the challenge, one of my greatest mentors, Dr. James Turner at Cornell University, said to me once, he said that part of the problem was with our movement, our civil rights movement in of itself, because to some degree, we told some of our children that they should get on the bus.
Who's civil rights movement?
I'm talking about the civil rights movement of people of African descent. But let me finish. We told some of our children they needed to get on the bus, but we didn't tell them what to do when they got on or what they got off. So there's some people who believe that the small benefits that they received were why that struggle occurred, rather than something that was supposed to be ground shifting, that was actually supposed to empower a community. They settled for small and often minute personal benefit. And so let me say this about how I saw the interview. I'm going to talk about the interview I saw of Dr. Umar Johnson on the Morning Club, and also the interview I saw with him on Roland Martin's show. I actually thought that, and this is what I think about our dear brother, Dr. Umar Johnson. I actually believe that sometimes his arguments are not as detailed as they should be. But I honestly believe that's not because he's not able to make detailed arguments. I think that he is crafting arguments for a much larger audience than some people understand. And so those arguments are extremely effective. I have extreme adoration in what he is attempting to do and how he has articulated those things. Sometimes when I hear him say it, I say, maybe there's a nuance here that his argument may not be capturing, that those people who believe that small benefit is theirs, they hear the weakness and then they go after it. Now, he afforded himself extremely well on the Breakfast Club. They didn't have a vested agenda in trying to tear him down. And I think he afforded himself even better on the Roland Martin show, because I honestly believe that there were three people of African descent sitting there. By the way, one of them almost said, well, while I disagree with some of he said almost what I said. While I disagree with how you're crafting the arguments, much of what you're saying is true.
Yeah, that was the attorney.
Yeah, he said that. But then the other ones, that woman wasn't. He called her a coon. Now I thought that he probably should not have called her a coon, because I thought he called the woman a coon. Well, I'm going to say that I don't think that he should have used that language, not because it wasn't apropos, because it was, but because I knew that there was a certain element of people that had not heard his entire argument that wouldn't hear what he was saying. And I think that he now I'm not saying it wasn't apropos, because what they was doing was coonery. It was coonery. And she called him, and he was called a liar. So it was in retaliation. It was in retaliation. So let me be really clear that when he said that some black people love white people more than they love themselves, I think that almost everyone in the audience, regardless of their background, sat down. Because they said, you know what? That's what we're seeing here. I think almost everyone in the audience sat down. And I would like to believe that even Roland Martin believed that what he was saying was true. But to be honest, bringing those three people on to try to address some of his comments, it didn't weaken his argument. It strengthened it, because he actually attacked it and dealt with each and every one of them. For him to actually to ask him questions about his education. You think Roland Martin didn't already check those things? Of course he did. But the reason why he did is because he knows that it's there. It's in the ether. I can't look at a Facebook feed that deals with Roland Martin without some people questioning his educational credentials. It is very easy to check his credentials. And I guarantee you that there are dozens of people who have done so. If they had found anything that was amiss, we would know it. It's that simple. So when Roland Martin brought that up, he was actually saying, address something that's out there. And it was good that he did that. He said he did that several times. And Brother Umar Johnson, who I have never met personally, who I'd like to meet, but I've never met personally, did a masterful job at dealing with all comers. He dealt with it the way you're supposed to.
You know Umar's a smart brother. This is the only reason why he upsets me when he does that shit.
Does what? Does what, Chick?
First of all, I keep telling you, there's agendas at play. Okay? Umar's trying to fund a school.
Yes.
Okay? So now, what does a school do? What is Umar saying that the schools are doing to our black young men? Umar's saying that they feminizing our little brothers, brainwashing them, putting them in, giving them drugs, what's that, ADST and all this, right? My point is that there's a lot of money that is invested in the school system, especially in places like New York. There's 1 million school kids in New York.
All you have to do is ask what the salary of someone like Eva Moskowitz is. I think her salary, when the last I checked, was like $700,000 a year.
Okay,
and that's for charter schools. So you are absolutely right. So this is big business.
Yeah. So what I'm saying, see, I understand. Because I'm me, right? That when we hear information, there's two ways we hear it. We hear the information and we see who's saying it. And then we grade the information based on who's saying it. Some people can say things and we won't question it. Other people can say things and then we'll go ask somebody else that don't look nothing like us the same damn question and then accept that answer as if that shit was the authority. What I'm saying is, what I'm saying about my brother Umar Johnson is you trying to like not overturn an apple cart. You trying to say I got a better idea for this apple cart.
That's right.
And fund this idea. And what I'm saying is, let's say he's correct. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say he's absolutely correct. Let's say that he's so correct that it's kind of painfully obvious that he's correct. He's still an economic threat. Because now he's saying that everybody else is incorrect. And that all that money that's going into their model,
All that money that.
all that money that goes into the models that are not correct, that are not producing effective products, because I know y'all might not like the phraseology, but in a market, school is a product. They produce a product. An educated child is a product. You send your child to school uneducated, you expect them to come back educated. You expect benefits for that. There's time invested in that. There's energy invested in that, right? People make their careers professing that they can educate people. You understand? So that there's rules, and you get what I'm saying? So Umar is saying that he's challenging the system. All I'm saying is that when you are rising above, you got to stay above. You can't dip down and spin your hat backwards and talk shit in the video.
How do you think he did that?
But what I'm saying to you, my brother Larry, I understand what you're saying. You're saying that he should have stayed up top, stayed afloat, and just kept teaching. You hear, hold on. You hear her, but it's going out the other ear, and you just want to keep focus on the plan, But let me say this to you. It reminded me when I watched that Umar with Roland Martin. It reminded me, it was an automatic flashback when Malcolm was up there with the Negroes and the Coons, and they was defending the white man. It reminded me of that. I'm looking at it, and I'm like, look at this. It's the same exact thing today. And Malcolm did the same thing. He took time out to address them Coons.
What we call history when you don't learn from it. History will repeat itself if you do not learn from the mistakes of the past. Right. Now, I'm not telling you that in a different setting that you don't dress that down. I'm saying that, what's your chess move here? Was that your chess move? I don't think so. Because he's fundraising. You understand? I don't know, man. Just my take on this is different, right? My take on this is like, see, I recognize that you got, I call them official black people in America, right? And that's not to say you got unofficial black people in America. You have black people who are inside of the American system, and you have black people who are not inside of the American system. They're just in America, okay? That's what I mean, right? Now, Umar is trying to get inside the American system. That's what I'm trying to say. He's not trying to get outside the American system. He ain't trying to say, I'm building a school over here for black people and no whites allowed. But that's although that's what he's doing, right. But he ain't trying to do it outside of America. No. He's trying to build it in America.
Yeah, but in some ways, I think he is trying to do something that's slightly out of the system. It's one of the reasons why he has rejected the concept of doing a charter school and why he wants to do a private school, because he believes that he'll have more latitude with a private school. I honestly think that I doubt much of the $700,000 that he's raised has come from people who don't identify with what he's trying to do. Now, listen, I've listened to Umar Johnson for years. I don't agree with everything he says, but that's not necessary. What is necessary is me to recognize and believe that he is attempting to do something for our children, and that he is absolutely honest about that. And there is no reason for me to believe that he is not being genuine. There's no reason. I think that he has actually been extremely transparent on the matter as well. When you ask him how much money he's raised, he says, we raised $700,000. I mean, I don't see, and I know that the number has increased, because I remember when he used to say $500,000. So the number is increasing. I think that there are some people who would rather him be quiet and go along to get something for himself. Mm-hmm. And I think that what he is, because there are a lot of people, that is the structure that the United States is built on. That's the reason why I believe that Barack Obama had to eventually happen. Because if everyone actually believed that there could never be another type of leader for the United States democratic polity, what would eventually happen is some people would recognize that the system is beyond rigged. And so they have to allow some people to get out. I know very well that I had the opportunity to go to one of the best academic institutions in the world, but I am in no illusion that I was necessarily the most intelligent child in my school. You hear what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. There were many children who I know who grew up with me in elementary school, who went to high school with me, that were brilliant, that did not have the same opportunity that I did. Mm-hmm. Now, I would like to say that's because the deity has blessed me, and I believe that there's some truth to that. But the reality is that we live in a system that cannot allow all of us to succeed. Because if we all succeeded, the actual reality would change. They have to make sure that some of those kids in poor, under-resourced schools can succeed. Because then if some of them succeed, what are we able to say? We're able to say, well, it was about how hard they wanted to work. It was about whether they had parents that were invested. It was about how intelligent they were. And I'm not saying that it's not about those things, but it's not simply about those things. It's also about a system that must keep the majority of formerly enslaved African people, that must keep the majority of impoverished or working class white folks, and many others of poor and exploited Latinos, and many others. Wow. It must keep us below, because the system, because those people who are most powerful are benefiting from our labor, are benefiting from our lifeblood, are benefiting from those land masses that are our birthright. They are literally stealing from the rest of us.
No, what I mean is, look, dude, ignore that shit. Mm-hmm. You understand? I know me, right? So now, my point is that, and this goes back to Umar Johnson, right? We dealing with the internet age, right? So when you reach a certain plateau, right, you become a target. Mm-hmm. You become a target not of brothers like myself, you know what I'm saying? But you become a target, they will meme the shit out you. They will take sound bites of you saying stuff.
Yeah, I got that's happening to me.
You understand? Yeah. Not just take it out of context, sure, but utilize it in their own context, you know? So when you're dealing with the type of, in my vision, the type of thing that he's trying to accomplish, right? Well, you just got to be a little, you got to be a little different type of player. Mm. You could have somebody like me or Sonetta, right, address that. Mm-hmm. But you look, I'm dealing with this. You know what I'm saying? You can't distract me from my focus with this nonsense. I don't have no time for that.
I hear what you're saying, but this is what I feel. I honestly believe that more people, a wider population of people than had heard Dr. Umar Johnson prior have become acquainted with Dr. Umar Johnson in the last 2 weeks. In the last 2 weeks. So that in the conscious community, who doesn't know Dr. Umar Johnson? In fact, I'm going to tell you something funny. I'm doing a standing room only presentation in Philadelphia, right? Standing room only. It's like 300 people in the room. And, the brother that brought me says, we want you got in here free, make a donation so we can continue to bring in speakers. I'm getting ready to speak and someone raises their hand and says, so when we give money, you're going to bring in the heavy hitters? I said, wait a minute. What am I, a middleweight, a bantam dude? And I laughed about it, but I did feel a certain type of way. I was like, now, wait a minute. I respect Dr. Umar Johnson, but I can hold I'm holding it down. You know what I mean? I have 30 years of information and 13 trips to the motherland. And, so, I felt a certain kind of way. But you know what they were trying to say? What they were saying is Dr. Umar Johnson has a bigger platform than you. Right? More people are familiar with Dr. Umar Johnson. And I respect that. Over the last 2 weeks, his platform has even gotten larger. And I think that he actually, while I wouldn't have done everything that he did on either program, on what he said on the Breakfast Club, or what he did on a Roland Martin show. I'm not Umar Johnson. Of course, he's going to handle it differently. But I think that overall, the brother got a B+. He did a very good job. He did a very good job. He handled all comers. He addressed a lot of issues. I think that we would be crazy not to think that even Roland Martin has affinity for him after the way that he dealt with his situation on the show. I know that he was upset. I do. I was upset. I think that he was upset that he used the word coon. But
let me see what Larry.
I think. See. If I was rating his performance to give him a grade, I'd have gave him an A. Right?
On both of them?
No, I'm not talking about the first one. Right? Nah, I'm talking about Roland Martin.
Okay.
Right? I would have gave him an A. Right? And I still give him an A. But I'm not talking about his performance. I'm talking about his ability to stay focused. Yeah. Because you have to see Look. From my perspective, right? When Roland Martin told him to put his credentials out, right? And he put his credentials out, right? Then Roland Martin questioned his pedigree, right? Then he dealt with the pedigree, right? Now he got individuals coming out, right? Now, I understand, right? Because I get the goddamn hate for even taking pictures of black men with white girls or black women with white dudes. You understand? And posting it on Facebook and making comments and turning them into memes and stuff. You know? So I know what I'm dealing with, and I know what I see, and I know why I'm saying what I'm saying, right? And I'm just saying, right? Umar Johnson, he can't be focused on that side shit. If this is what you look, how you dealing with the United States of America, the black population in the United States of America? We have black people in the United States of America that can stand next to you, and you will not know that they're black people unless they tell you. You understand? We have black people in America like that. They just got ancestry.
That comes from another continent.
Well, yeah, you could put it like that, right? They got mix on top of mix, remixes,
Sure.
You know? Yeah, that's what it is. They got remixes, right? So when you look at and this is not a put down of these black people, right? Louisiana got a lot of them, right? And you look at the history, the quadroon and octoroon balls, and you understand that this was something that was sought after, you know, and people aspired. Remember, we used to have that phenomenon of people passing for white, you know. Remember, I'm saying, right? Yeah. I'm going to say we used to have the phenomenon of people passing for white. I'm not saying that we don't still have people passing for white. I'm saying that that's not an issue anymore. Right? You don't really see people being outed as being black and they were pretending to be white, and it's now such a social stigma that they have to leave town.
Let me say this.
That's gonna get me some coons, right? They gonna say, you a coon, right? But
And speak English in a different way. And linguists will tell you that the reason why we speak English in that different way is because what linguists call interference. Interference means that some people are speaking one language that they've learned, and the language that they know is interfering with some of the rules that they've been taught about the new language. The fact that black folks use double negatives. Double negatives are not part of English. But if you learn the Kemetic language, if you learn even Kiswahili, Double negatives are part of what black folks do. When you use two negatives, it makes something even stronger. That is an Africanism. And I think that because many of us have not been able to study our language, the way we speak, the things that we do, sometimes we're not clear that what we're doing because we're African. So in many ways, I agree with you. And I'll tell you that that can be challenging. It'll be challenging. Listen, I was in Ghana. I believe this is 2006. I've traveled to Ghana twice. I love Ghana. I actually intend. Anika and I have always said when we have enough money that what we plan to do is build a house there. It's not expensive to build a house there with U.S. dollars, and we want to have a house there so that we have a real invested interest in the continent. We're not just. It's not an idea. It's home. So we can go to Ghana and bounce all over West Africa and come back to our home. There was another part of us that said that as soon as we saw the first snowflake, we would get on the plane and leave. And when it stopped snowing, we would come back. We always expected that we would be New Yorkers, but we thought that being a New Yorker didn't mean we had to spend all of our time here. So I love Ghana. However, I'm going to tell you that when I first got to Ghana, in some ways I was angry. And here it is, I'm a historian. Here it is, I'm a grown man. And I didn't expect that with as much as I knew happened to us here and happened to our family still on the continent, I thought that my knowledge would prepare me for some of what I experienced. And I know that when I got there, as someone who knows history, I remember we went to I believe it was the palace of a king by the name of Prempeh II, very powerful king in West Africa. And the person that was giving us a tour is a historian that has written several books on the Ashanti people and several books on that kingship. And when one of my young people that I was traveling with asked him a question that was uncomfortable but needed to be answered, he said to him, "So you talked about the Ashanti. Did the Ashanti people play a role in the slave trade?" Now, I knew the answer. And so this guy says that the Ashanti people didn't exist during enslavement. And so everyone did this. Are you telling me the Ashanti people are actually from the 20th century? From the 1900s? What do you mean they didn't exist during the enslavement? So it was a ridiculous question. And so here it is, my student, someone who was under my charge, is getting this misinformation. And I had to challenge the guy that was a historian, and I began to realize that he was being completely disingenuous. So that was the first time I actually got angry, right? When I went to one of the villages that we had a relationship with, I was traveling with the African Genesis Institute, a program that Anika and I have been involved with for nearly 20 years that we love dearly. I actually went into a village, and we were meeting with the people in the village, and it was a young person I was talking to for an extended period of time, and I asked him a question. Now, I knew that the young person spoke English, right? Right? He spoke, I believe it was Tree as well, right? But he spoke English, and I asked him a question, and he didn't answer me. His older brother, as I asked the question again, looked at him and said, "Why don't you answer the Obroni?"
Wow. What? And did you?
And immediately, yes, I did. Immediately, now this is a teenager talking to an elementary school student, and I'm an adult. So you would assume that I would have actually dealt with this better, right? I felt myself becoming enraged. I had some very interesting experience in my first trip to Ghana, and I had to calm down. I had to literally calm down, and I said, I waited for them to talk, and the young person answered, and I looked at the teenager, and I said, "I noticed you called me an Obroni." Immediately, he was apologetic. "Oh, I'm so sorry," because he didn't realize that I knew the word. By the way, for those of you at home that don't know the word, it literally translates to something like, and it's a term that's used generally for foreigners who are not of their people. Right?
He's using a literal, but they loosely.
But I want you to know that even though it's literally, I understand he wasn't necessarily using it that way, but that doesn't make its origin, its etymology, any less angering. So I spoke to this young person, this teenager, and I said, "Why'd you call me that?" And he said, "Oh, we just use it for foreigners." And I remember at this point, all of the young people were gathered around me in this village. It must have been about 30 or 40 young people. And I said to all of them, and from varying ages, I'm talking about people who are in their early 20s, all the way down to literally a kid that may have been 3. And I said to all of them, do you know why we're here? And they looked at each other, and they said, no. And I said, do you know my group has been here before? And the older kid said, yes, you've come a few times before. And so why do you think we keep coming back? And they said they didn't know. So finally I said, you have to understand that we were taken from here. We are you. And we were taken by people who didn't like either of us. I'm trying to talk in a language that young people whose first language is not necessarily English could understand. And we're coming back to see you. And I said to the person that said the word, how would you feel? How would your uncle feel if your uncle had been away? And it wasn't even his will to go away. Someone grabbed him and took him someplace else, and he came back and you called him a foreigner. How do you think he would feel? And he said, I think he would be really upset. And I'm getting really upset. You know what happens? I'm getting upset. I'm not speaking ill to children because I'm still who I am, but I know that I wasn't upset. People who knew me knew I was upset. So you guess what happened? After I finished my sentence, an elder historian who I have great respect for, Dr. Runoko Rashidi, came and he put his arm under mine and he said, Jabari, come with me. All right? Now, Runoko is my elder, someone that I truly have a lot of respect for him. So I followed. He walked me away from the group. We walked down a path. And I did not know why he was walking me there. And so finally he comes to a small room. A small house. It's one room. He opens the door and he says, what is this room? And I said, it looks like it's an office. He said, no, try again. I said, is it a doctor's office? He said, no, try again. I looked around. I said, it doesn't look like a house because there's nothing here. There's no kitchen. There's no place for anyone to sit. He said, well, what are the things that are in this room? And I looked and I saw one shelf with some books on it. I was really confused. I said, I don't know, Brother Runoko, tell me. I'm still a little upset. He says, this is the library. And at that point, not only did my mouth drop, but my anger abated immediately. He said, how can you get angry when you, the most powerful group of Africans in the world, have not secured your image, your interest, and your history in your homeland? That was how he dealt with it. I don't even know if Runoko remembers the conversation. I hope he sees this video. But it meant a lot to me that he actually dealt with that with such wisdom, elder wisdom. And so the reality is that in many ways we are different. Let me get back to put a button on this. In many ways we are different, but those differences also speak to us being African one. But I think that we have to come to a point where we recognize that our ability to be this new African people, these people that are the product of several different groups, African groups, these people who are not necessarily invested in some of the ethnic discord that has occurred on the continent. There's something that we can actually do now, because we, in our right minds, want to return and love our homeland. It may be possible that we may be able to unify some sections of the continent that have not seen unity, because we are not part of some of the petty disagreements between people. So I really hope that is what happens based on this new group of people that has been created.
That's actually the second time you mentioned that, right?
So you heard the story before?
Well,
no, I never heard the story.
Well, no, the fact of your aspirations about our special place in the hearts and minds of African people, right? What I need to point out, right? Because this is disagreeable, Larry. Here. Family. It's just time for realism-ism. You did. It's just time for realism-ism, right? Look, when you look at the continent of Africa, right? When you deal with conditions on the ground, right? You talk about people never tried to wipe out other people. That's not entirely true, right? Because them damn Tutsis tried to wipe out the Hutus tried to wipe the Tutsis out.
But wait a minute.
The Hutus tried to wipe the Tutsis out.
You were not talking about. I would like to submit that place between the Hutsis and the Hutus and the Tutsis in Rwanda. I want you to recognize that what we're actually talking about is something that was manipulated by Europeans, the Belgium mostly, right? So I'm talking about when Africans, we have a long history of dealing with each other. I'm talking about when Africans were doing things that Africans do. We never sought to do that. We have no records of any group of people that were sought to be entirely annihilated.
That's not, see. Here's no. I don't have to go to something older when I can go to something now, right? Because my understanding of history now, and for those individuals that like to play with words, overstanding, inner standing, sideways standing, however you want to stand history, the comprehension of it, right? When you look at modern reality, you can look at the types of situations that people found themselves in historical circumstances. The only difference is going to be that now there are lots more people because of food production management systems that have evolved over the last 100 years. Right? Well, what I'm saying, look, here's when you look at kingdoms, right? And empires, right? And nation states, right? And city states, you can see an evolution of political constructs, right? When you look at modern political evolution, the modern political state, right? What model does it take? What system does it seek to participate in? It seeks to participate in the current system because it is a model that is established. When you have something that's new, I'm looking at people for people. I'm not looking at people for like once upon a time we arose on a spaceship and just set up shop on Earth, right? We evolved from life forms on this planet, right? And to me, it's not very complicated, right? Because I don't see anything extraordinary yet. Because I ain't seen nobody flying yet. When I see the person,
I was just on a plane the other day.
No, when I see the person evolve, when I see the person evolved and be able to float around like a bird, right? I'm following that person because that person knows some shit that I've been wanting to know all my life. I want to know how to do that, right? But until I see that, right? Everybody is the same, okay? The only difference in people is the level of bullshit that they can spew.
But
listen,
that is an extremely pessimistic view.
Well, no, what it is, right? Mosquitoes don't have any respect for you, brother Jabari. A mosquito does not respect your intellect. A mosquito does not respect you. A mosquito will bite you anywhere it sees you, attack you with the most vilest thoughts of sucking every drop of your blood. And the only reason it stops is because it's belly full, or you smack it dead. Now, my point is that the same way a mosquito regards you is how anything else that's hungry on this planet is going to regard you if it sees you. Now, because we evolve cultures that take us out of the natural world in these artificially constructed environments. Remember, we're in an orchestration.
Yo.
A fabrication.
You gotta get the mic and address this because I gotta get ready to go. So
But we in an orchestra of fabrication, right? And inside of this, everything's made up, Brother Jabari. Everything. From the time you small, they start pumping you with ideas that ain't got nothing to do with reality.
All I can say is this. I as a historian, I recognize that there are general arcs that are similar in certain parts of history. That's not what I'm disagreeing about. But I do believe that if we look at human relations, something different has occurred. I mean, the status of the modern corporation in the United States and around the world being actually equal to a human being.
An evolution.
That is absolutely, well, I don't know if I'd call it an evolution, because
evolution.
I would suggest that when you say evolution, the layman thinks that means that things improve. That's what the layman thinks. I'm not saying you think that, but we're speaking to an audience. So that's the reason why I would say that I wouldn't use the word evolution. I would say that the creation of the modern corporation may have been predicated on other factors that came before it. That's how I would describe that.
Do you think that evolution denotes progress or just change?
Generally speaking,
towards that progress.
Now, see, you're saying towards progress. I think that devolution might be something else, another term that we can use, because some things don't always get better with time. I think that we can see that, particularly in terms of the relationships between people and our regard for the planet, that some things have gone backwards. Well, and so I'm just challenge you on the term evolution, not because you're using it in, well, you did say towards progress. The reality is that some things I don't think are progress. I think some of what we need to do is we need to return to something. That's the reason why my organization that I created before my shrine is called the Center for the Restoration of Ma'at. I'm not just talking about finding a balance. I'm talking about coming back into our understanding of how we should relate to each other and the world. And so I think, what's systemic? When you say systemic in this regard, what do you mean?
Okay. When you look at the modern society, this one, right? This is a system. Okay? They just pulled a coup in this system. They're trying to overthrow it, right? And make a different system. You have people fighting right now. You have different systems around the world in which people are fighting to change those systems, right? So it's a system. The people of which have been socially engineered, are undergoing social engineering. But when I say evolution, right, there's social evolution and there's biological evolution.
Yes.
Right? I'm not talking about biological evolution.
I get that.
I'm talking about psychological evolution, and I'm talking about
social evolution.
The manipulation of that social evolution through the psychology.
But here's the deal. I think that there were systems that in some way were more equitable at an earlier period of time.
I don't disagree.
So what I'm saying to you is that when I said that I thought your take on it was somewhat pessimistic, I think that what we shouldn't just, and I hear this from people sometimes. I hear this as a historian, I hear it as a priest. I hear people who say that all powerful people seek to oppress people who are not powerful. And I think to a certain degree there is some truth to that, but I don't think that we should assume that everyone who has ever been in power was seeking to reduce everyone who was not in power. I think that when we do that, no, but I think that is the way that it can be taken when you say that there's nothing new, and you've also said,
not that.
Well, and I'm talking about even in terms of enslavement. I mean, I think that the system of enslavement that in that people of African descent were under
Today?
No, I'm talking about were under. We're dealing with the aftermath of it.
Okay.
But I would like to believe anyone who is working for someone else is a slave. And I would say to you that while they are not in control entirely, There's a fundamental difference between the situation that my relatives were in the United States and in other places, because my family was all over the place. You know, in this country prior to 1865, and you know, we could play with that date. I know some of you may, but it's just different.
That's not what I mean. What I mean is, I'm not saying it's analogous current reality with what our ancestors endured. I'm not saying that. Okay. I've been incarcerated. Right. That's analogous to what our ancestors endured, right? What I'm saying though is that the systems that the derivatives in this market are based on a slave model. They're based on a model whereby which they can get a vast number of people paying into a system that they derive benefit from. These are the people who come up with the system, right? Cable TV, owned by a family, right? They want as many subscribers as possible, as many people paying into that system as possible, right?
Let's say we're gonna have to do this in more than one part. But can I say this one thing? I think that you're talking about the exploited masses, and I think that saying that people are exploited, the exploited masses includes a subset of people who were enslaved, but it doesn't mean that the entire group of people who are exploited are enslaved.
Now, my only point is that now once they get you in that system, right, and they get you paying this bill, and they get you paying that bill, right, and this bill and that bill, right, they plugged you in.
But you ain't had no bills when you
no. But wait, wait. Now wait. Well, yeah, you had a bill.
You were the
right?
commodity.
No, you had a bill. You had a bill. You had a quota of cotton you had to pick.
That's not the same.
Yeah, yes it is.
I could cancel my cable.
No, wait. Yes, it is. Listen. You could unplug from the system.
Right.
Trust me.
You could do that as an enslaved person too.
Yeah. Yes.
The Maroons.
No. You could unplug. Yes, you could unplug from the slave system.
Maroons?
No.
You kill yourself,
brother. Stop it.
What was you gonna do?
Run.
Yeah, but you get caught,
brother. See that he wouldn't have ran. He wouldn't have ran. Silent. He wouldn't have ran. No, brother. Listen. This is what.
Wait. First of all, what period are you talking about? Because there were people who ran to Canada. People forget that Canada also had enslavement.
Yeah.
So you have to understand what period you're talking about. There were people also who ran into Maroons. There were Maroons in Florida. There were Maroons. Sometimes people think Maroons are those communities of escaped enslaved people who created autonomous communities. Sometimes people think that only happened in the Caribbean. There were Maroons in the United States as well.
The Moors in Mauritania are slaves, right? Right now today, and
that's a fact.
Now here's the thing though.
That's a fact. People are uncomfortable with.
Here's the thing though. Right? Here's the thing, and this is why I tell you that I don't know why these people who claim to be Moors don't talk about this. Right? Now, just imagine our people here. They're saying that we were tricked, that we weren't taken from Africa, that we were here. This is our Mexum and our Moorish and bullshit, right? Now, this is now. Watch how this works, though. Watch out. But watch how this works. Watch how this works. Now, just listen to this and watch how this works. They're claiming that we're Moors and this is North Africa and we were here and they enslaved us in our own land. Right? Now, watch this though, Jabari. The Moors in Mauritania are enslaved in their own land right now. Right? They're Moors. Their language is called Hassani. The ones who are the descendants of them are called Haratines. Now, when you look at our population, descendants of slaves, and they call us what? They want to call us African American. They want to call us black. You understand what I'm saying to you? But we have yet, like I said before, come together and determine who we're going to be moving forward as a people.
Interesting conversation.
Right? But now, when you think about it, in Mauritania, you have a population that ended slavery in 1981. You have a population, they still enslave some of those people, right? There's a lot of denial about it, They still dragging people off. But now you think about us. 1865, they allegedly ended slavery. 100 years later, they signed the Civil Rights Act, right? This is only 1981 for Mauritania, for the Moors there. 1981, this is 2017. Ain't been 100 years for them. No civil rights for them. They drug a brother out the masjid for saying blacks and whites are equal in the Quran. They drug his ass up out of there. The point being, if you claiming to be these people, here these people on the continent of Africa right now being enslaved by white Moors. Now the white Moors, they not white like white people in America. They white like O'Brony white. They white like you. You best
to stop it.
You know now. Back to the O'Brony though, right? They use O'Brony to mean white man or white person. Now look, listen. I'm telling you how to use it. I'm telling you how to use it. Now here's what I'm.
Where you get that from though?
Listen, I have clients from Ghana. Listen, no. I have clients from Ghana, right? And I sit them Ashantis down, right? Because they over here saying nigga this and nigga that. You understand? And I sit them down because your ancestors was selling people to the British. You understand? You don't come to America and be niggering it up over here. You understand? That's an insult.
I think that first let me say I agree. I do think that we have to also make sure that we're clear that not everyone who was Ashanti was part of the power structure that was doing that.
We know that.
Okay. So I just so that some of the people.
Let me stop you right there. Let me stop you right there. Let me stop you right there. Let me stop you right there.
Because that same.
No, let me stop you right. No, let me stop. Let me stop you right there. Let me stop you right there. Yes, I did send the army to Iraq and Afghanistan.
Oh snap!
Now let me stop you right there, because if Barack did it, I did it. Damn right, I did it. But I blew up Gaddafi too, right? Now, listen. What I'm saying is this. No, understand me, right? Because I have very good friends that are Ashantis, right? But I don't play no games when it comes to this history, right? Now, all I'm saying is this. When we look at analogous institutional reality in society or societal structures, the Ashanti were the white supremacists of their society. Okay? Now, when you look at how they treated other people, other Akan people, that caused the Fanti-Ashanti War, right? When them Fantis joined with the British and burned down Kumasi, 1874, because of the way the Ashantis was dealing with shit. Right? But no. What I'm saying is the Ashanti, they wasn't no weak punk motherfuckers. You know, they killed like 200 British soldiers one time, right? Over a dispute. The British was coming and they ain't had the permission of the damn king.
But let me say this though. All I'm saying, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm familiar with that history. I'm not disagreeing with any of that. What I am saying though is that sometimes what we end up doing is, and this is for folks that are familiar with the history, sometimes what we do is we find people who are Ashanti and we prosecute them for the Ashanti role in our enslavement. And I would just like to say that not everybody who was in Ashanti garnered benefit, made those calls. It's the same way that, it's the same way, wait, let me say, it's the same way that, you know, when I go to Kemet every year, when I go to Egypt, I'm going to say Egypt, meaning the modern place. When I go to Egypt every year, I remember just a few years ago, I'm in the market buying some fabric, and a guy that's a little further away goes, psst. I'm like, what is that? Psst. Finally, I see it's an older man that's calling me, and he goes like this. And so I come over to him, and I said, yes. He said, Amariki? I said, African Amariki, right? And he said, yes, I get that. In other words, he's like, let's not argue about the fact that you're different. However, he said, so I know George Bush stole the first election. I said, yes, he did. And he said, but you reelected him. What happened? And he used some foul language at that time. What the F happened? And so what he was doing is he was asking me, as someone who is a citizen of the United States, to actually account for the insane decision that the majority of people made. Now, I actually said to him, I thought that Bush stole it twice. And for some people who aren't familiar with it, look at all the ballots that didn't get counted, the people who were taken off, who couldn't vote. There's an argument for that. But I think there's also an argument that Bush got more votes the second time. There's an argument, right? But really what I'm saying is what I wanted him to do is acknowledge that I wasn't part of that. My people weren't part of that. My parents weren't part of that. My community wasn't part of that. And so that powerful people sometimes make decisions for groups of people that the average people wouldn't necessarily make. Yeah.
No, that's it. That's it. I understand your analogy, but this is what I want you to understand, right? And we're going to dead this right here. We're going to let this sit on your mind for the rest of the night, right? Just like you understand that them white people in America that ain't own no black people benefited from white supremacy, I want you to understand that Ashantis that ain't own no slaves and ain't sell nobody to the white people benefited from Ashanti supremacy.
I think that there's
hold on,
there's a fertile conversation that
I could agree with Larry on that.
Fertile conversation that could happen.
Now let me ask you. You call yourself Mandingo.
Yeah.
Why?
Because the 75%, right, of the black people that were brought here to North America come from Mandé people, right? And Mandé people have different subsets, right? But the Mandinka, Bambara, Mandingo, right, are the most well-known, and those are the ones that established Mali Empire. Right now, at the time that our people started arriving here in numbers was at the same time that Mali disappeared. Now, Mali disappeared because of a slave rebellion. A slave rebellion on the continent of Africa by the Soninke, who was being enslaved.
We got to talk about this. By the way, the topic is covered in my book.
Well, let me get that.
Yeah, the topic is.
So yeah, we're gonna have to deal with that on another time. But right now, I want to. You can stay if you want to. But all right, family, we're not over. It's not over. Trust me, it's not over. We still got more to come. Here come part 2 right now. Part 2 is coming. Part 2 is coming. It's not over yet. But what I would like for y'all to do is thumb up the video, family. Thumb up the video. Let me tell you why that's important and why you always see people say, can you thumb up the video? The reason why we be wanting y'all to thumb up the video is because the more likes you have on the video, the people can easily find it. It jumps up. It goes up on the list, on the radar. This is why a lot of people always say, yo, thumb up the video, family. Give me some thumbs up. Because we want people to find our video easy. And it goes into the search engine. Y'all understand what I'm saying? It goes into the search engine when y'all thumb up the video. So come on, family, before we get into part 2. Thumb up the video. Family, don't cost you nothing to thumb it up. Thumb it up. Show your appreciation. All right, now, Sister Sapphire, can you put in the link for those who is to purchase the ticket? For those who want to get the ticket. If you can't get it, let me get the link. For those who want to get the ticket, we're going to head in there with part 2. You know your brother got to pay the bills, though. Got to pay the bills. I got to pay the bills. So we're going to head in with part 2. Okay? But before we do that, let me throw in that link. I'm trying to get the link. Gotta get the link. So in case those of y'all who would like to get the your ticket today, you can get your ticket. Okay? So once again, thumb up the video for your brother so that it can go up in the search engine. Come on, y'all. Okay, there we go. Let's get that link. Damn, ain't nobody thumb up the video yet? Okay. I hear you. There we go. Okay, let me pay a couple of bills real quick, family. And we're going to head right back in there with part 2. Let's get it.
Are you ready to be financially stable? Are you ready to have that perfect credit score? Are you ready to start your dream business? If you answered yes to any of the questions, then you're ready for the Dagger Squad. Dagger Squad Inc. provides professional services including credit repair. Dagger Squad Inc. specializes in the removal of negatives in the form of late payments, collection accounts, student loans, bankruptcy, judgments, and much more, holding the unofficial record of 26 deletions off of one report. After cleaning up your credit score, you might be interested in boosting it. Dagger Squad can help with the purchase of trade lines. Also referred to as authorized users, trade lines are aged lines of credit used to boost credit scores by piggybacking off of the account in good standing. We've sold lines from Citibank, Chase, and Capital One, just to name a few. We also have the Z Black Card, the top prepaid rewards card that pays you for referring friends and family. Unlike other prepaid cards, the Z Black Card isn't loaded with fees. Why should you have to pay to add or remove your money? Here at the Dagger Squad, we believe in no monthly fees, no load or withdrawal fees, no transfer or balance inquiry fees, and the list goes on. You may also be interested in our student loan debt removal service. If you're tired of paying loans with extremely high interest rates for $1,500, you can eliminate it forever. That's right, forever. Using accounting principles along with the consumer protection laws, we can put an end to your student loan. With our help, you can even become an official government contractor. Purchase products for the government, price the product with a 20% margin included, locate a supplier for a specific product, then track supplier shipment. Dagger Squad Inc. guarantees 100% success as clients are assisted by top business professionals such as Brother Garfield Reed, Sister Monica Lamb, and Sister Cheryl Stevenson. Our goal is to financially empower members of our community so we can all see a better tomorrow. If you or someone you know needs to put a dagger through their finances, give us a call at 1-800-518-2817 extension 901. That's 1-800-518-2817 extension 901, or check out our website at www.daggersquadinc.com. That's www.daggersquadinc.com.
All right, family. Hey, let me say this to y'all real quick. For those of you out there who would like to have their commercial put up on the screen with Sonetta, family, all you gotta do is write your brother or call your brother Sonetta, and we can make that happen. You see what's going down. You see it going down. Family, call in. If you got something that you wish to promote, give your brother Sonetta a call, and we gonna work that out. We gonna work that out, family. You see, Garfield was doing the damn thing. Garfield doing it, and the commercials are looking professional. That's what we got to have, professionalism. All right. So, if y'all wish to promote anything, any business that y'all got coming up, any events y'all have coming up, give your brother a call. Give your brother Sonetta a call. Y'all know my number. Can you please put my number in the chat room, please? Let the family know that all they got to do is give me a call, and they got it. Give your brother a call, and I will make a commercial for you, or you can make the commercial and send it in. Just let it be like 52 seconds. The more or the longer it is, the more it will cost you. Like anything else, like everybody else. Just like everybody else, family. So if y'all have something that y'all wish to promote, let me know. And believe it or not, people are watching. Don't think that the people is not watching, family. The people are watching. You heard? I'm going to share something with you right now to let y'all also know we have this coming up for the people. All right, y'all ready for this? Here you go. Let me put it in there. We're going to have this on our page as well. We're going to make this available for the people. Y'all ready? Here you go. My man just made these. Baba Heru, of course. Here you go right here, family. For those of y'all who are coming into town and you want your pendant, you want to show the love and show your support, we got pendants. We got chains. We ain't playing. We not playing. Look at that right there. Tell me that's not beautiful, family. Y'all see that? Y'all see that? Come on, man. They go the pendant for Sarnetta. Woo! That's fire right there. That's bad. We got another one for you. Y'all ready for it? We're going to have different ones. Made in gold, made in silver, made in bronze. I mean, you name it. Here's another one right here, family. Look at it. That's all silver. That's all silver. Okay? Get your joint, man. Don't let the haters stop y'all. Show the people. Show the family. All right? And, of course, this is my personal one right here. This is my personal one right here, family. Baba Heru made this one for me. This is personal. It got gold in the middle. Y'all see that? Sarnetta TV. And you see the mic. He holding the mic. All right? So, yeah, man, we doing the damn thing. We ain't playing no games. So, without any further ado, family. Oh, shit. Without any further ado, how could my mods miss that right there? Thank you. Thank you, Sapphire. How could my mods are sleeping? My mods are sleeping. All right? You know the haters up in there. They mad as hell because they see Sarnetta got that product. I got that product. And it ain't no dope. It's not coke. It's knowledge and information. That's the dope I'm pushing. That's the coke I'm pushing. That knowledge and information and inspiration. So let's get right into it with part 2. Family, let's get it.
To Star City, Virginia, ATL, Georgia, Frederick, Maryland, and New York, New York.
Princess Lanita.
And Sarnetta TV. Sarnetta.
Shout out to Sarnetta Studio, right? Because you don't get stuff like this nowhere. This is changing. This is changing entertainment. It's changing education. This is epic. Y'all better receive Sarnetta Studios.
When you ready for the latest breakdowns, latest news, latest presentations, there's only one place to go, and that is Sarnetta Studios.
Black man, wake up. Black woman, wake up. Sarnetta Studio, the greatest media on the planet. We right back at you. Thank you for having me. House of Consciousness, I love you. Peace.
Check out the channel, Sarnetta Studios. The brother's gonna be bringing a lot of lectures through. You get your live lectures. You're gonna get some on-point documentaries and things of that nature. So make sure that you subscribe, spread the word, let your peoples know Sarnetta Studio is the new channel. Alright, peace.
Tune in.
Peace and Black Power family. Welcome to another Sarnetta TV House of Consciousness production, Sarnetta Studios, and we are here live.
Donald Trump wasn't qualified to the office that he got elected to. That it was a coup. They overthrew the government.
This is Anika. Hold on one sec. Hey, Snakes. Hey, where you at? You okay? Oh, man. Crazy.
Brother Jabari.
Yes.
Have you heard how Donald Trump threw his son under the bus?
Now, here's the question I had for you, because I actually heard part of the breaking news, right? But I hadn't heard how he might have done some things to his son that might have given him less support. So I want to hear what the latest is. We should talk about this a little bit, because I don't know anybody in the black community that's having an intelligent dialogue about what's happening in our country around the presidency. So what angle were you taking on it?
Well, first let me say that, in my opinion, part of the psychology that we suffer from as a community is that we acquiesce to white supremacy. Our ancestors devised strategies to obtain power in a society, wherever they were. They strove for political power. And they began to attack them. They began to attack the outspoken males, the outspoken females, lynching them, burning their houses, burning their churches. And it never really stopped, but it only flares up when there's political consciousness or movements that attempt to gain the support of the masses of our people. You know, little pockets, you're not a threat. But when you try to gain the masses of the people, you become a threat to their economics. And that's what we're dealing with, because this is still a market. Okay? So now, you want to say something?
No, I'm listening to you.
So when we look at this political structure, right? And they started that take our country back, right? Only because they saw a black guy as the leader, right? Then they stepped up attacks on black people. They stepped up rhetoric about race wars. Everybody's talking about the race wars imminent. That's because the black guy was the leader, okay, of a white supremacist based fabricated reality, because America's a fabrication, okay? So when you see the reality of it, like these people who claim that we were always here, miss the point of the reality of America. America wasn't always here. America got a birth date. So what we dealing with is the birth date of this thing, because from then it became an entity in and unto itself. And everything that comes into reality strives to maintain that reality. It strives to live. The different components of it only serve to enhance its longevity. So life is like that. This is why things fight to live. This is why chickens don't just lay down and give you their legs. Although you might like chicken legs.
It ain't gonna come that easy.
No, the chicken's not just gonna surrender, right? This is my point, right? So now, remember, but in a fabrication, you can actually alter the nature of things by separating it from its lineal nature. Like you separate the parents from the children. You take black children and raise them in a Spanish-speaking environment. They speak Spanish. They don't speak English. You take black children and raise them in a white environment. They don't identify with black people. They do that other thing, the American thing, okay? And while destroying your ethnic group might have worked for the people in charge, because they had an agenda, they systematically excluded our people by appearance. The Donald Trump, right? He threw his son under the bus by saying his son was a nice guy. He admired his honesty, or his what did he say?
Transparency.
His transparency, right? That's throwing that boy under the bus. You admire that your son gave up the evidence against himself, but they said you didn't have anything to do with it. He didn't know anything about it. They made sure they said Donald Trump didn't know anything about it.
Right. I hear what you're saying.
But they established the timeline. They established the timeline
Yeah.
of how and who was there, and
Right.
the campaign manager, the son-in-law, the son, the first son, all there. Right?
I hear what you're saying.
They threw him under the bus.
I hear what you're saying. I think that that analysis is so much that you said I want to get to, because I think that it's a very interesting analysis. In terms of, and it's interesting that you said he threw him under the bus, because I think that is one interpretation that we haven't heard. And this is this is breaking news. It really started this weekend. And it's getting hot. Yeah, he got a lawyer real quick, fast, in a hurry. So I think that what we have to understand is that we have, and it's interesting that you use analogy of an animal that is trying to save its life, right? Because in some ways we have an animal that's trying to save its presidency, right? And I think that we have to recognize that the structure of power in the United States let this get away from them. I actually think in many ways that Donald Trump is not a reflection of, is not a more genuine reflection of the power structure in the United States. I think that in many ways Barack Obama had to happen. And the reason why Barack Obama had to happen is it allows this, and you called it a fabrication. I like that word. I think it allows us to believe in this Horatio Alger myth that you can work hard and you can be whoever you want to be, when in actuality, Barack Obama's presidency has not changed and could not change the fundamental nature that black people, the fundamental relationship that people of African descent have with the United States. So in many ways, while I think that it was important that Barack Obama was the president, we have to also recognize that that certainly does not mean that the fundamental situation that we are addressing has changed. In fact, you also mentioned that these white supremacists have really become inflamed by his election, and we can see that gun sales are at an all-time high. They have exploded since Barack Obama became president. And in fact, they've actually, some of those gun sales have actually declined since Donald Trump was elected, because part of what the most reactionary racist elements, I didn't say the racist elements, I said the most reactionary racist elements wanted to believe is that Barack Obama sought to take their guns, that Barack Obama was going to, through some sort of violent act, remove people's ability to have weapons. And I think that it should be clear that that was never the intent. Barack Obama would not be able to do that. But that's what they wanted to believe. Now, so let's get back to Donald Trump and what's happening here.
Wait.
Yeah.
See, there's a lot to unpack right there. And I don't think that they thought that Barack was going to take their guns. I think there's
who's the they?
White. We're talking about white wing propagandists, right? Not right wing, white wing propagandists, right? Because that's where that stuff comes from, right? Remember, you have to have an enemy, okay? And when you're trying to stir people up, we're like the most visible one here. Okay? So now, if we got somebody that looked like us in the White House, and he got swag like us in the White House, right? They don't see the white mother. They see the black father. You understand?
That's the construct they created.
Listen, all I'm saying is they don't see that. Just like the only thing you have to remember is where we are. And where we are is important when we're dealing with who we are and who they are. Remember, they raped our women and produced little Baracks and enslaved them too. And then raped them and enslaved them, their own children. So that's who we're dealing with. We're dealing with the element that we're up against. Uses the average white person, got them hypnotized into thinking that they're a part of some shit that benefits them, called whiteness. That's right. In America.
That's right.
They think that shit benefits them. They get the damnedest wake up calls when they leave the country.
Well, let's be fair. I think it's fair. I think we should say that whiteness does benefit the white person. But you know what the reality is? It doesn't benefit them as much as they'd like. I think that Dave Chappelle said something very interesting. He said that they were all part of the heist, but they didn't like their cut. I love that line because in many ways, what he's actually saying is that certainly whiteness means something. If and I think you would agree with this. I mean, clearly, if you see the manner in which black men are the absolute target of the violent implements of a power struggle, that police kill and abuse black men with impunity, and black women to a lesser degree, but also to greater than anyone else. If you even look at, but wait, I'm gonna go further here. Even look at, I just saw something that was really interesting last night, where even the numbers of pedestrians, more black folk get killed per capita as pedestrians. It seems that when people see black folk in the crosswalk, they are less concerned about whether they kill someone. And that is not something I had heard before. So I think that we should actually understand that whiteness does mean something. I don't want to make it seem like even those poor, impoverished, working class white folks that are fighting for their race aren't getting something. But the reality is, if they understood how little it got them, then what we would see is the poorer and working class people of African descent, and perhaps even those working class whites, unite to overthrow a system that oppresses us at different levels, of course, overall. And I think that if you want to hear more about how this actually happened and how this dastardly plan was hatched, look at the beginnings of the enslavement of the African in the United States. You'll actually see that some of the first Africans that were kidnapped and brought over here were in a structure that is similar to indentured servitude. It's not the same as chattel slavery, but yeah, so that what ended up happening is that system of chattel slavery was literally created in order to allow the most powerful whites at the top to extract benefits, to extract power from all of the masses of people, including people of European descent, the Tomhus, as our Kemetic ancestors called them. And look at Bacon's Rebellion. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this, look at Bacon's Rebellion.
Wait, pause that.
Sure.
Clarify what you mean by no.
Black man.
I know who we are. All right, I'm talking about the structure was deliberately set up by who?
I would say that the structure that we are in today was deliberately set up by the most powerful Tomhu, people of European descent. And in doing that, they created a system of racial stratification. And in creating racial stratification, what they did was they cleaved the larger number of people, the working class white folks, away from class consciousness. So they would be more focused primarily on race consciousness. And in that instance, that meant that they would ally themselves. That's what we're really seeing here. We're seeing that working class white folk actually voted for Donald Trump, when in actuality, and you'll see an article every week in the New York Times and other major newspapers, you will actually see that those same people don't truly benefit from his election. I just looked at a rally that went to Washington, D.C. I think it was called the Trach Mamas, right? These are parents of a few different, maybe a few different ethnicities, but primarily white folks who are going to Washington, D.C. to fight for what the right wing called, or the white wing called, Obamacare. And some of those people on that bus voted for Donald Trump when he was absolutely clear that one of his major platform positions was that he wanted to repeal and replace Obamacare. So that now that they are actually attempting to do that, those people who voted for him are actually fighting for a policy that they should be clear Donald Trump was against. And the reason why they did that is because they were voting their race identity rather than their class identity. It's the same reason why we see that the majority of white women voted for Donald Trump, even though he said the vilest things about women, and particularly white women. They still voted, the majority of white women still voted for him. It's the reason why people in those red states, and not just the red states, but in the red states, are fighting against their own interests. When they do surveys, they'll tell you that so many of them didn't even know that the Affordable Care Act was actually the same thing as Obamacare. So when you do when they did the surveys, the Affordable Care Act had very high marks, but Obamacare had very low marks because they attached it to the black person in the White House. And that's the problem. Now, I honestly say some people who are more naive would say it's so simple. Then what people of African descent should do is we should no longer be arguing that we have race interest, and that what we should do is we should discard race and love everybody so that we can convince these poor whites that we are on the same team. I think that that's ludicrous. It's ridiculous. It's a kind of strategy that was not hatched by anyone who has been familiar with the last 200 years at least of history. The reality is that we do have race interests, that we are poorer because of our enslavement, that we are poorer because Europeans took the resources of our homeland, including, in some instances, the most eligible participants in the workforce of those nations. So all of that still beckons to the reality of race in the United States, and in fact, in many instances around the world. We do have to still address race. And for those whites, those Tomhu, that understand that this structure doesn't benefit them, what they should be doing is they should be, and this is something that my queen and I always say, they should be working in their community. They should be working to develop class consciousness in many ways in their own community. So they recognize that yes, they are part of the heist, and yes, they do have a share. But the share for powerful whites is so much larger than their share that they should be fighting in a different manner. This harkens back to what Howard Dean said when he was running for president. He said that those white folks with the Confederate flag on their pickup trucks should be voting Democratic. He got lambasted for that comment, and he deserved to be lambasted. But I understand what he was trying to say was those working class whites should come into consciousness that their interests do not lie in the Republican Party. I would argue that their interests also don't lie firmly in the Democratic Party, but at least the Democratic Party is closer to their interests than the Republican Party.
Okay. Well, let me refer to something you said earlier about the actual founding of this enterprise we call the United States of America, right? What we have to remember is that you had a good thing going on, right? You had a good thing going on that the English wanted to get involved with. And
what's that good thing you're talking about?
Land grabbing thieves.
Okay, gotcha.
right?
Gotcha.
The Spanish were involved, the French were involved, right? So the English wanted to get involved, right? So when they sent people to colonize, right, they needed people to work. And they took their prisoners, they poor, they they dregs of society, they rounded up Irish people.
That's right.
And they shipped them over here.
That's right.
Okay? So now, with the promise that you work for a certain amount, I think it was 7 years, right? And then we hook you up with some land and something and get you started, right? So now there was always a plan to provide a means whereby which the whites they brought here could gain a footing. Okay? Now, those whites who didn't, they fell by the wayside. There was no get a footing.
Okay.
They fell by the wayside. They started turning into robbers and thieves like they were. And the funny thing about jeans, right? And as an aside, we are in tune with our ancestors, right? And we don't have a problem understanding how we connect to certain things even before we actually know it. But then we don't give the same credit to the white people. They in touch with their damn ancestors too. Their ancestors was murderous thieves. They in touch. They in tune. This is who they are. To us, as an aside.
And when you say that, you're talking about the class of people that they brought.
As an aside.
Yeah.
As an analogy. You see zebras, right, by the watering hole. The elephants pull up, the zebras don't run. The baboons pull up, the zebras don't run. When the lion pull up, the zebras run. Because the lions got history with zebras. Now, some might argue, right? And I often post memes and make jokes on Facebook, right? That lions actually love zebras in their own way. But conscious zebras reject lion love. Feel me? No, they don't want no part of that lion love. Listen, go love somebody else. Damn.
That's right.
Now you want me to love you?
That's right.
After the way you treated me? Are you for real? So, I mean, as an aside, analogy to the topic. We have been culturally numbed. And our own culture has been weaponized against us. We bop into the beat. We dig in the groove. We appreciate the praise for our creativity.
Yeah.
Yo, shit, master like that. I'ma do it too. Everybody wanna do it. Cause they gonna clap. Wow. They love me now. Meanwhile,